Hello, welcome to Castar Reviews, and before we take a dive into Devil May Cry 2, I have a question. Have you ever looked at a game and wondered how it ended up getting a sequel? I felt that way while slogging through Street Fighter 1's arcade mode, and the question was stuck on my mind while going through Devil May Cry 2. At risk of showing my cards early, I don't think Devil May Cry 2 is a very good game, and playing it makes me question how Devil May Cry 3 was considered such a sound investment. The age test doesn't really apply to this one since it was never considered to be good when it hit store shelves in 2003. Also, Hideki Kamiya wasn't even called to develop Devil May Cry 2, which I think is a mistake. You have a genre-defining game that was incredibly successful and you don't even ask the visionary behind it to direct the sequel? Makes no sense to me. Anyhow, without further ado, let's check out what the story has to offer. When you start up the HD collection and select Devil May Cry 2, you are faced with an option: play as Dante or newcomer Lucia. Dante has 18 missions to Lucia's 13, and a few of the missions are the same for both characters. This is my first complaint with the story. Since both stories happen simultaneously, why don't you make the player alternate between Dante and Lucia and have, say, 25 or 30 missions? Basically the way that Devil May Cry 5 handled its mission structure. This is the first in a long list of bad design decisions, trust me. I'm going to make an effort to combine both plotlines into one. The story itself begins in a museum where Lucia is fighting off some demons and looking for something called an Arcana. This Arcana is a coin in a glass case. Then suddenly Dante blasts through the ceiling and takes it for himself. Lucia invites him to Demary Island by throwing a knife at a map of what looks like South America. Dante meets up with Lucia and her mother Matier. Matier tells Dante that she and her clan once fought demons alongside Dante's father Sparta. She also tells Dante that a corporate businessman named Arias is looking to invoke the demon Argisax to gain more power and conquer the world. Dante channels his inner Harvey Dent and flips a coin to see if he's going to help them. Luckily for them, the coin works out in their favor. Dante leaves and Lucia and Matier talk more about the Arcana, which are used to complete Arias' ritual. Lucia goes to confront Arias and he drops a bombshell on her.
Well, it appears that the defect is back.
Defect?
You are my creation.
Liar! Mathieu is my mother.
She merely found you when you were about to be disposed of, and then raised you as a soldier. Is that what you consider to be a mother?
No! I don't believe you.
Arias blasts Lucia away when she goes to strike him, and she later meets up with Dante. Lucia gives Dante the last of the Arcana, so Arias can't perform the ritual. But Dante goes to confront Arias when Matier tells him that Lucia went to go fight him, and he gives Arias the Arcana. Anyhow, Dante beats up Arias for a while, but he gets away after Dante saved Lucia. Dante leaves to confront Arias, and he seemingly finishes Arias off with his pistols. But then a portal to the demon world opens up, and Dante and Lucia debate on which one of them should go through the portal, knowing full well that whoever does will never come back.
I'll go. I'm expendable. You don't need to worry about me. I'm happy if I can die like a human.
No. Devils never cry.
But...
Let's leave it to fate. Heads, I go. Tails, you go. See you around.
After Dante leaves, Arias comes back to life and Lucia defeats him once and for all. Meanwhile, in the demon world, Dante fights the partially summoned Argisax, which turns out to be an amalgamation of all the bosses we fought up to this point. And also Griffin for some reason? Actually, it kind of reminds me of that SpongeBob episode where Squidward is merged with all the other characters. Was Steven Hellenberg a big Devil May Cry 2 fan? We'll never know. Regardless, Dante defeats both forms of Argisax and becomes trapped in hell forever. Dante then rides his motorcycle deeper into hell, and meanwhile Lucia and Matier discuss what will become of Dante, ending the game. It's here that Lucia finds out that there's something weird with Dante's coin.
Everything is just as it was with Sparta.
Oh my.
What is it, my dear?
Both sides are heads.
Heads, I go. Tails, you go.
Well, that's kind of cute. He was just going to help them either way. The story's pretty simple, but honestly it's boring to me. I don't feel like anything was explained at all. It felt like a college paper that only makes sense to the person that wrote it. Maybe they had to cut some exposition to placate the extra missions, but that doesn't make any sense to me. Also, what happened to these characters? They have no personality at all. Dante barely talks and only has about 2 good lines in the entire game. Lucia goes from one-dimensional personality to another halfway through the game. If I ever want to play this game again, I'm not doing it for the story. Hopefully the presentation makes up for it. Well, not necessarily. The weird Resident Evil camera angles were mostly fixed, but this doesn't even look like the same series anymore. Devil May Cry 2 went for a more urban aesthetic for its levels, except for when you go back to what looks like an Egyptian tomb. It works with the theme of the game, but the graphics don't look at all that interesting. Even though Devil May Cry 1 took place on one island, its locations were still varied and memorable. All of the gray and brown buildings blend together, and it's hard to tell the levels apart. Dante, along with the orbs, got redesigns. The orb redesign doesn't do much for me, but actually I like Dante's new clothes. But his new personality is something I do not jive with. I don't really know why they made him so stoic and serious, because I think the reason that Dante was a great character in the last game was because he could be serious when he needs to be, but still crack jokes during downtime. The voice actors sound pretty bored too. It seems like no one was taught how to inflect when they speak. The soundtrack is also pretty forgettable, as in, I can't even recall one song in the OST. Nothing more to say about that. The gameplay is still relatively the same. Let's take a look at that. The same sort of hack and slash action has returned for Devil May Cry 2, and the style rankings have changed a bit. It now goes from don't worry to come on, bingo, are you ready, and showtime. It can almost be a complete sentence. Other than that, here's a look at what most gameplay sessions of Devil May Cry 2 look like. Guns are very powerful in this game, and a lot of boss fights involve floating or flying enemies, so your best course of action is to find a corner and fire away. This leads nicely into some changes to the style system as a whole. It seems that only 2 moves actually increase your style ranking, the Stinger and High Time. Another in a long line of questionable design decisions, fixing what wasn't broken. The difficulty has been toned down as well, but in my opinion it's been toned down a bit too much. I hated how hard DMC1 was, but I still think it was manageable as long as you had a healthy supply of yellow orbs. Besides the damage balancing, another thing that swings the difficulty pendulum is what are now known as gold orbs. You can continue as many times as you want if you die mid-level, but if you have a gold orb, then you're revived right there on the spot with full health and full devil trigger. The trade-off is that you can only carry one at a time, but it makes boss fights a joke when you basically have 2 sets of health and devil trigger. Also, Dante's Devil Trigger has something called the Majin Devil Trigger. If your health bar is red and you activate Devil Trigger, Dante assumes a new form that deals massive damage to bosses. It's the easiest way to beat the second form of the final boss and neuters what was left of the challenge. Okay, let's move into some positives here, shall we? Dante has a separate dodge button, which is awesome, and he has a quick select for his multiple guns. Lucia has the same deal with her knives. Lucia is functionally the same as Dante, but her Devil Trigger projectiles are different. One thing that I think is a cool wrinkle to gameplay is the amulet system. There are pieces to an amulet that you can use throughout the game to alter what you can do in Devil Trigger, from adding fire or electricity to projectiles, superior swimming, flight, and speed. You can use these abilities to get past sections that would be more annoying otherwise and make your life easier. Secret missions have returned as well, but they're not puzzles like before. It's mainly just kill all the enemies in a room. No complaints for me. Some of the secret missions in Devil May Cry 1 were really annoying. As far as unlockables are concerned, you use red orbs as currency like before to buy items that help you on your journey and upgrade your weapons. Now guns can be upgraded to do more damage, which comes in handy for the aforementioned flying bosses. When you beat the game once, you unlock a costume for the character you pick sponsored by Diesel. You also unlock a mission select, which is a godsend if you miss one blue orb fragment and don't want to start all the way from the beginning. After beating the game with both characters, you unlock Bloody Palace mode, which is a gauntlet of rooms filled with enemies. You can get red orbs pretty easily in this mode, so I'd recommend that along with mission rankings to get a ton of red orbs. If you beat the game with Dante in hard mode, you can unlock Trish as a playable character. I'm not fucking doing that because I'd rather get a root canal than play this game again, but harder. From what I've read, she plays similarly to Dante in DMC 1 and uses the Sparta sword, but I still don't think it's worth it. Devil May Cry 2 feels like a low point in the series to me. All of the radical design decisions made for a worse sequel as opposed to a better one. Hopefully when I review Devil May Cry 3 next time, I'll find a game that's learned from its past mistakes and has become a better game for it. Speaking of, Devil May Cry 3 is a prequel to the storyline thus far, so we'll be dealing with a younger Dante and an alive Virgil. This has been another episode of Castar Reviews. Subscribe for more content from me and follow me on Twitter for production updates. See you then.